please welcome to our stage Gaurav Kulkarni.
Thank you. So over the next couple talks, we're going to be asking you to dream big and really think about what the future of Ann Arbor is that you want. And so to kick that off, I want to share my personal story of my experience with cities, as well as why I fight for more neighbors. And I want to start this by talking about this report. So this is a Surgeon General's report from 2023 about a health crisis, an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. The Surgeon General put this out to talk about this issue where the report finds that half of Americans, and this was before the pandemic, half of Americans experience measurable levels of loneliness. And this isn't just a bad feeling. This is people who are experiencing real social isolation and have health effects from that, have mortality effects from that, in some cases as much as 15 cigarettes a day. That is the health effect of the isolation people are feeling. This is not a new phenomenon. The report talks about the decline of community, the decline in social bonding, and we've been talking about this actually for quite a while. So 25 years ago, Robert Putnam put out this book, Bowling Alone, where he's chronicling from 1950 to 2000, over that 50-year period, this decline in civic, political, and social engagement and involvement by Americans. And so this has gone since the 50s. Another book I want to call out is Ray Oldenburg's The Great Good Place, where this was published in 1989, where he's lamenting about the loss of third places in the United States. And third places, a term he coins to talk about coffee shops and cafes and these hangout places where the community can gather that's outside of home and work. And through all of this, I think sometimes we think about social isolation in terms of cell phones or social media, but we actually have seen this long history of this decline in community and connection. And we've seen the effects of this in terms of people's feeling around loneliness, isolation. And so I wanted that to serve as sort of a backdrop for how I think about and talk about my experience with cities. So I moved here in 1997. My dad was working on a project for Borders Bookstore, and we came here as immigrants. Me and my brother were children, and we didn't really know anyone here. We didn't have a social network or structure to lean on. That being said, the first weekend that we came here, we visited Main Street, and we found something that looked like this. And it was very exciting for us. This was really the moment where we fell in love with Ann Arbor. Main Street felt vibrant and exciting and joyful. And when I close my eyes and I think about what does Ann Arbor look like, for me, this is what Ann Arbor looks like. That being said, most of my childhood was spent somewhere like this. So this is in Pittsfield Township. I grew up in the suburbs, and while there were other children to play with, for the most part, I was trapped. I was isolated. I had nowhere to go. There was nowhere interesting to go. If I wanted to go anywhere, I'd have to take a car. And the tragic thing is, this is the pattern of development that really took over in the middle of the last century. Between 1940 and 1970, the population of Ann Arbor tripled. And a lot of that was going to single family homes, to space for yards. And the only way you can make that math work is through sprawl. And so we saw this massive sprawl that happened, not just in Ann Arbor, but across the country. And so I'm sure many people have the experience of growing up in a place that looks somewhat like this. That being said, I graduated from high school, went to college at the University of Michigan, and I had a very different experience in college. So if in suburbia, I'm spending all of my time at home, in college, I was spending all my time in university buildings, in libraries, on the diag. And when I'd go to these places, I was running into my friends. I was seeing people, and it really shifted my sense of what home means. It's not just my dorm or my apartment. It incorporates the public realm. It incorporates these public spaces that we all get to share together. I always really liked this tweet. Half the reason folks romanticize college is because it's the last time most folks lived in dense, walkable neighborhoods focused on providing community during plentiful off hours. Like, that could just be how we build cities. And it's true, there is no rule or reason why we can't have a similar level of human-to-human connection after college. Cities are the product of the choices that we make, and we can make different choices. So after college, I moved to San Francisco. This is where I spent my 20s. It's where I learned how to be an adult, where I learned how to buy groceries without a car or make friends for the first time as an adult. And I learned a lot about myself in San Francisco. Specifically, in my time there, I fell in love with, first and foremost, parks. So I lived in a 600 square foot apartment, as did most of my friends. And the feeling was, we didn't really need living rooms. The park was our living room. The park was where I went to sit and read a book, where I went to spend a lazy Sunday afternoon. I wasn't hanging out in my home. I was meeting with friends and sitting and having parties at the park. And I didn't need a yard. I didn't need a backyard. I could use the public's yard. And I really loved being able to have that shared space where it's not just for me, it's for the entire community. And so I really did fall in love with parks, spent a lot of my time there. The other thing I fell in love with was transit. I remember when I first moved to San Francisco, the overwhelming feeling I had was this feeling of freedom, that I could just hop on a bus and go wherever I wanted to go. If I wanted to go get drinks in Oakland, I could go there and not have to worry about how I was gonna get home. And even for my daily commute, I could do crosswords, I could read a book, I could do other things. I didn't have to stress about traffic or things like that. The other thing is transit and buses, it's a great equalizing force. I was around people of all sorts of, all different walks of life. And I think when I was in a car or an Uber or a Lyft, I felt separated from the city, separated from San Francisco. Whereas when I was on a bus, I felt like I was part of the fabric, part of the rhythm of what made San Francisco go. And it felt good to feel that belonging, to feel like I was part of the story of this place. And so as I was thinking about these two things, parks and transit, I was trying to think, what brings those two things together? What's the similarity here? And I think fundamentally, the thing I fell in love with was the public realm. It was the space that we get to share that isn't gatekept. We all collectively own the public realm that is the space for us. And I really liked that I could invest in and think about and spend time in this democratizing space. And so that being said, I still missed Ann Arbor. It was a running joke with a lot of my friends that I would constantly talk about Ann Arbor, my time here. And it was not really a surprise in 2020 when I ended up moving back here to Ann Arbor. And I was thinking a little bit about, what is it that I missed about Ann Arbor? What was it that I could get here that I wasn't getting in San Francisco? And it was not downtown parking. It wasn't the buildings. It wasn't the lawns. It wasn't the lack of traffic. No, it was things like ferry doors and top of the park and summer games. It was fundamentally creative endeavors. It was fundamentally human-centered things that drew me to Ann Arbor. And so as I moved back, I've been feeling really that more neighbors would make this place even better. And I think about this in a couple different ways. So the first is that neighbors are transit riders. They are folks on our buses, and if we want better transit, we need more riders. It relies on ridership, and so if I want more frequent bus service, higher quality bus service, trains, that requires more people to be here. And so more neighbors enable public transportation. Neighbors are customers. They are foot traffic. Those are things that are vital to neighborhood businesses, to grocery stores. And so more neighbors support neighborhood businesses. And sprawl is the thing that kills walkability. By the inverse, density is the thing that allows us to have walkable neighborhoods. It allows us to have these sort of 15-minute neighborhoods. And so more neighbors create walkable, healthy communities. And so I was thinking about, why do I fight for more neighbors? And definitely a huge part of this is that we have a moral obligation to make space for the people who want to live here. But there's also a selfish part of it. I have this dream of what cities can be, and any version of that dream requires there to be more neighbors here. So I want to end this with talking about roughly 100 years ago, we embarked on this suburban experiment. In case this isn't familiar, this is Westgate, the beautiful parking lot there. So 100 years, we embarked on this experiment, and we're on the tails of World War II, a world-changing event. And we come back home and decide to radically rethink the way we design the places we live in. Remake America to prioritize cars and get people from quickly from point A to point B. And we're now 70, 80 years into this experiment, and we've seen some of the results. It is bad for the environment, it is bad for our health, and it is bad for community, and it is bad for, it is leading to this isolation. And so I've been thinking about the last couple years, we've again experienced this world-changing event with the COVID-19 pandemic. And it makes me think that now is exactly the right time to think about a new experiment. We have done radical change of our lived places. We can do this again. And I think it is time for us to rethink how we build places. And I think this time we can center community and connection and humans as we think about that. And so as you're listening to the rest of the talks tonight, I want you to think about, what do you want to be part of this new experiment, this new way that we all live together? And that's what I've got. Thank you.